Hey, it's Flux of Fluxwithit.com, and today we're here with the legendary Dave Rossum. And Dave, you have the Assimil8or module here today, right?
That's right.
Now this thing has been a long time coming. You've got a lot of people freaking out over it. Can you give us some good news about this thing? How is this thing doing?
So it's doing great. We're very excited about it. It has been a really long road getting there. It's been a major development project, but we've gone into beta test now. The modules are literally being manufactured as we speak.
Oh, awesome.
So our expectation is March 1st is what we're saying is going to be the date when we open the floodgates, and the sales have been very good. We're probably going to be sold out of the first run on the first day. But
very cool. Now this thing is basically it's a synthesizer and sampler in one, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, it is a sampler. It's serving as the oscillator in your synthesizer. It really isn't a filter or anything like that. It's designed as a sound source, but its flexibility is just, I think I can safely say it's been unmatched by anything that's gone before it.
So this thing is basically you're gonna be able to load your samples on from a memory card here, right?
Yeah.
And tell us about what exactly is happening with this module.
So first of all, it's a sampler. So you've got a memory card, the little micro SD card here, and in that card it will have folders. If you want to take samples that you're getting from somewhere else, a little clumsy here, getting that guy back in, you would just load them into that folder as WAV files, either mono or stereo, any resolution. It won't take floating point, but up to 32-bit resolution. The module itself maintains 32-bit resolution for all of its internal signal processing. But it also has, in the module, its own ability to sample. It can sample in stereo. It's again, 24-bit plus sampling quality into it, 48, 96, 192 kHz. And it's designed to be just very easy to sample. You just press the button, it places it into a channel, and away you go. So you can be sampling in performance. And the other neat thing about the sampling is that it can sample itself. It can do all its other functionality while it's sampling. So you can take everything that's going on in the Assimil8or or the Assimil8or as processed by other modules in your system and sample it back into a channel.
Now, is that an internal patching that you can do, or do you need to externally patch that in order to do that?
You're externally patching right now. We're because we're in beta test, we're looking at features like that. Do we want to make an internal patching system? Okay. So it's entirely possible we will do things like that. That's the point of beta test.
So can you tell us a little bit about the functionality as far as the actual synthesis that goes on with the samples?
Absolutely. So you start with a pitch shifter. The pitch shifter inside this thing is pretty amazing. Most samplers can shift up an octave and down maybe 4 or 5. This thing will shift up to 5 octaves without significant aliasing and down about 20. In fact, it's kind of fun. We have a lot of sort of whimsical voltage controls in here. One of them is an aliasing voltage control. So you can control the interpolator, the thing that does the pitch shifting, so it can go from very high quality to start aliasing on those higher pitch shifts down all the way to what's called drop sample, what the old Sonic Mirage does, that sounds so awful and gritty. And that's voltage controllable dynamically while the sound is playing. That was kind of fun to program.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So you got the pitch shifter. It's got exponential FM. It's got through zero linear FM. And so that means it can take the sound and play it forwards with a positive control voltage or backwards with a negative control voltage. That gives you that very interesting music-y, old John Chowning kind of FM sort of sound, as well as you can implement a scrub wheel with that same control.
And you're doing that with samples, so it's not just simple sine waves that you're making this happen with, so you're getting really complex harmonics and interactions that way.
Yeah, so you've got control over the pitch there, you've got control over the level. It's got an internal attack-release generator, both the attack and release time are voltage controllable. It's also got, you can set the level in decibels, you can modulate the level either linearly with linear AM, including apply an external envelope if you don't want to use our internal envelope generator, or modulate that for just AM effects with an exponential.
And how many voices is it playing at once?
It'll play eight voices at once. It samples and plays back in stereo, so if you want to sample or use WAV files that are stereo sounds, that's going to swallow 2 adjacent channels to be able to do that. The channels can be linked together, so you can have one trigger fire off more than one channel. That's very useful when you're using the phase modulation feature.
Okay.
Let's see, we've got...
Tell me about Mutate.
About what?
The Mutate function on it?
So the Mutate has a fully dynamic continuous bit crusher in it. So you can take it from 32 bits down to 1 bit. And again, that's a nice continuous control. It isn't jumping and stuff there. That aliasing control is in the Mutate area. You also can reverse the sample if you want to just play the thing backwards. You can press a button in there and that just reverses the sample.
Now, if you want to trigger this off as if it were a drum sampler or something, like if you want to trigger off single shots, you can do that as well?
Absolutely. It's got 8 different trigger inputs into the thing. And the timing accuracy on the thing, the latency is really quick.
That's what I was just about to ask about.
It's well under a millisecond. I think I
wow.
measured it at 400 or 500 microseconds.
So not detectable by
yeah. And it's also incredibly reproducible as well under that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I just consider that vital. That sort of goes without saying in the stuff I designed.
That's my man. Yeah, that looks phenomenal. Anything else you want to tell us about with this?
Yeah, there's a couple other things that are really important. One of them is the phase modulation. We've got some audio demos that I'll play you some sounds in a little bit, but it's a new dimension in sampling that I'm amazed no one has tried it before. We put it together and it's such a cool way of modulating samples. It just gives you really exciting sounds. That in itself is worth the price of admission. And then the other thing we did, we wanted in the Classics MIDI sampler, you can assign different samples to different keys that you play.
Yeah.
How do you do that in eurorack? We decided we had to have we've called it zone. So we have a zone control voltage, and that control voltage, if you change it and tell it to note the zone control voltage on the rising edge of the trigger, it will play a different sample.
Oh, nice.
When you do that, you also, if you have coordinated samples, you can tell it instead do it in real time, and it'll swap between the samples live on that control voltage. That works if you've done your homework right. There's some incredible things you can do with that.
That's fantastic.
And finally, I've got to add this one as well. You also have voltage-controlled location of the sample start, sample end, loop start, and you can either modulate the loop end or the loop length.
That's amazing.
And again, voltage controlled, that gives you some more really nice dynamic characteristics that you can use either with waveforms or with phrases.
So I'm gonna ask a little bit out of the normal box of eurorack question.
Sure.
Have you considered having just straight MIDI on any of these types of things?
Not really, and the reason is that I'm in love with eurorack. I love the control voltage and gate things. So I've stayed away from MIDI because once you get into MIDI, it's going to be a very different kind of paradigm, and I don't want to have to try and mix the two paradigms.
You want to keep it strictly eurorack for now, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to bring MIDI into eurorack,
yeah, sure.
Of course, get yourself a MIDI to CV and gate generator.
Absolutely.
I certainly think it marries well with sound design things and things like that, where you can come in and out of your digital audio workstation in analog and go into eurorack. I think that's going to work great.
I think the reason why I had to ask that is because I constantly get bombarded by people asking, is Dave Rossum making another SP1200? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? And this thing is very much not that. This is very much like a completely new realm of sample synthesis, which, I think people need to recognize that. But it looks every bit as groundbreaking. I mean, it's really interesting what you're doing on this thing.
Yeah, we're having a great time doing it. I have to comment on the SP1200. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be me. I know a lot of people want it, so it's definitely up here in the back of the mind, and you may hear announcements soon on it, and you may not. I'd like to. I haven't really decided, but I know that I'm the right guy to do it. So
I will hunt you down if I hear something about that and you didn't tell me.
Okay.
We'll be on top of that. But yeah, we're gonna get some audio demos of this and check it out.
Start here with a phase modulation sound. bass mod. Let's well, loop modulation. This is kind of fun. So this is got like an arbitrary control voltage. We can do all of this stuff with the control.
Is that freely assignable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what else do I have in here?
Kind of get away from you.
Oh, just
You get stuff like this.
let's do some aliasing.
Sample rate. If they get all dirty and grimy. That's crazy. I like that.
It's got a bit pressure in it too if you want to play with that.
Despite our best efforts, shortages of marijuana are now being reported. The U.S. military has more than tripled the use of drugs among its personnel since 1980. Our goal is to expand drug trafficking at all levels of government and in the private sector. Help us.
That's most of what I've got. Pull that on up. And a stereo sample here. And what we call a leak sample down here. So let's go over to Marcus.
Hey, it's Flux with Fluxwithit.com, and we're here with Marco of Rossum Electro Music, and he's going to describe this patch that we're about to hear. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the patch is?
So one of the great features of Assimil8or is what we call zones mode. Not only is Assimil8or a independent 8-channel sampler, but each of those 8 channels gives us the ability to assign 8 different samples to them and then select the samples under control voltage. So the typical use of that is like velocity switching in a synthesizer. So the channel receives a trigger and looks at the control voltage, picks the sample and plays it. But more interesting, the Assimil8or gives you the ability to monitor that control voltage continuously and switch immediately when that voltage crosses the border into the new sample. And the cool thing about that is it keeps some time aligned. So if you're, for instance, 1 second into sample 1 and the control voltage switches you to sample 2, you start at sample 2 a second into the file. So if you set up your zone samples so that they're time aligned, you can switch between them arbitrarily and maintain the rhythm and the relationship of all the samples. So what we've done here is a really kind of simple arrangement of that is we've taken 4 segments from a Cars song, a couple measures each, and looped them and allow us to use the control forge to send control voltages that will allow us to select them at random. So first we'll just show you what those samples are, and then we'll start switching in the middle of the samples so you can see how no matter where you switch, the rhythm and the tempo is maintained. Then we're going to show you some using the control voltage to sort of mangle the sound, controlling its frequency. And then finally, we're going to use the data knob to control the linear frequency modulation that essentially gives you the equivalent of scrubbing, of basically scrubbing a tape over a head. And one of the things to listen to is just the incredible quality as it slows down. We don't get any of the kind of pitch shifting artifacts that's normally associated with that, thanks to the amazing job Dave has done in developing the pitch shifting algorithm.